Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, joins us on 365 Sports. Arizona men's basketball, obviously very good. Tournament starting, in fact, it was earlier today with a game already done and a game being played right now. Jason, thanks for your time. We got a lot of things to get to, including, let's start with this that has nothing to do with University of Arizona, but maybe it does. Arizona State and the subsidy that they got the athletic department square. What is the story with that? Because I saw where Jamie Pollard, we discussed that, said this is another way for us. It's going to make it hard for us to keep up with what we're doing at Iowa State.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's funny because the quote in the Republic was basically like a magic pen. So basically, in order to balance the books, the athletic department received more than $50 million. That's got to be. I mean, I don't know nationally where that ranks exactly, but that's got to be one of the highest. It's one of the highest I've heard. And it's another thing that kind of changes the model, right? Like if you're another school trying to compete with these numbers, now you kind of have to look into that and see how you're going to operate your AD, if it's an auxiliary unit or if it's part of the whole university and things like that. So it'll be very, very interesting to see if this changes anything nationally.
Jason, the first year in the Big 12, about what you expected for Arizona now as they head to the tournament? I mean, was there a dip? Did you think everything went about according to plan?
Yeah, I mean, out of conference play was actually more disappointing than in conference. In conference is what I expected. No easy games, can lose to anyone. Arizona could also beat anyone. Very competitive. If you take a day off, you're going to lose, and exciting fan bases. I think that's the biggest thing that maybe if people didn't realize before, they definitely realize it now. Is in the Pac-12 you would go to half the gyms and they'd be empty, and that was very, very rare in the Big 12. So I think overall it's what I expected. I definitely didn't expect Arizona to win the conference or for anything to come easy like it did at times in the Pac-12. And I think overall, upset here or there, that this is kind of what I expected and what it'll be like moving forward.
So, Jason, how do you feel about where they sit, 2011, third in the Big 12, entering the conference tournament now, which will be exciting just for the first time to be in KC and all that. What do you think about Arizona as we enter or right here firmly now in March?
Yeah, I mean, they're not playing well as of late. They definitely have some things to fix. Their defense has been flat out awful over the last 2 weeks or so. But then you kind of take a look at it in the teams they've lost to. I mean, at Kansas on Senior Day, no one beats them on Senior Day at Kansas. Iowa State, BYU, who's obviously one of the hottest teams of the country, and then Houston. And so, that's 4 of their losses. And it's those are 4 of the best teams in the country right now. And so it's hard to kind of evaluate where Arizona is. I think that there's some things like most schools in the country that they have to improve on. And their margin of error just isn't very big this season. And so going into the tournament, I mean, they could beat Kansas or lose to Kansas and neither result would be a surprise. And that's just the kind of the way it'll be the same way in the NCAA tournament. It's kind of a crapshoot with Arizona because their margin of error is just slim.
So did Tommy Lloyd stir things up when he talked about the home crowd for Arizona in Tucson?
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far? Or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. For. Forgiveness. Far. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
I think the timing did. I think the comments, he's not far off. He's really not. I think that McHale is a great place. It definitely compares with most places that I've been to. There's some things that could be improving, but I think what was taken poorly was he was asked about Kansas and the atmosphere, and he turned to Arizona and said, we have to be better. And they just lost to Kansas. And so I think that the general feeling among a large chunk of fans is you didn't really have to put down Arizona to build up Kansas. And he clarified today in his presser that he loves Arizona. He's happy, but he's always looking to improve. And I think that's kind of different than what he said, which is, we have some catching up to do. And, just the timing and it kind of puts a little bit more pressure on him to win, because the argument would be like, hey, you've lost, 5 of your last 8 games or whatever it is. But, it's a situation where he's been vocal about it. He wants to improve McHale. And a part of me thinks it was kind of a shot at the administration, because there's certain things that haven't been run well at home games. And he just kind of didn't say it right. So it came off more as a shot at fans.
Jason, what do you think about this team's depth as far as making a deep run when it comes to the tournament?
I like the team's depth overall. I think it's an interesting mix. KJ Lewis is a good sixth man, but he's been struggling as of late. When he's on, he's very good. He has a wrist injury that's really hampered his shooting. His shooting has been absolutely terrible. But he's still really good defensively. The question is going to be Carter Bryant, true freshman that's had some really good games, and there's some other games where he's really looked like a freshman, and he's kind of looks like a baby out there sometimes. And he's going to be key, because he could really shoot the ball. He might be the best pure shooter on the team. But the problem is, because, like most freshmen, it's kind of feast or famine. You don't get those in between games. You're either going to get 15 points from Carter or 4. And so the depth is considerably better when he plays better, but they'll go eight men deep in the tournament, and they'll be, pretty fine with it. It's pretty solid bench.
I think Paul may have brought this up earlier about Arizona the first year in the Big 12, but we know the football team struggled too. Where are they, or where is the fan base, the athletic department, those who matter, on Arizona year 1 overall in the Big 12?
It's positive. It's positive. I think football, it was kind of a wake-up call, to be honest. And Brent Brennan said that, the wake-up call was they would line up against other teams. And he pointed to UCF. He goes, we're lining against UCF, which, people may not think is a powerhouse in the Big 12. But he goes, their linemen were significantly bigger than ours. And I think that's the difference. Is in the Pac-12, when you lined up, Washington and Oregon and USC would probably be bigger. The other teams would be kind of on par with Arizona. And the Big 12, the lines were just, Arizona was overmatched physically more often than not. I should have said Utah also, but overmatched physically than not. And I think that was the big wake-up call. And in the offseason, they went and, they got a lot of big men. So I think that, there's some differences with football and adjustment. But I haven't heard anything negative at all with how the conference run or anything like that. And definitely not on the level of the Pac-12, but, really no coach has been vocal. No admin has been vocal to be about any real obvious complaints with the Big 12.
Jason, Fafita, and now McMillan is, of course, going to be a part of the NFL, will be a first-round pick. Who are some of his guys that he now will lean on a little bit? And, of course, there's always the transfer portal, but he's going to miss his Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I mean, you don't replace a guy like T-Mac. You just, and if you do, you're probably Alabama or a school like that. But Chris Hunter, who was their second best receiver last year, returned. They really prioritized him in the offseason. So they're, they took a very big step by bringing him back, and then they rebuilt the room completely through the transfer portal and in high school recruiting. They added Trey Spivey from Kansas State. They had a Luke Weissong from New Mexico, who's really good. Chris Hudson from Washington State, who's one of their top receivers. So they rebuilt the room completely. They have a new offensive coordinator, so the whole offense is going to look significantly different than it did last season. They're not going to replace T-Mac, but, the overall depth of the wide receiver room was not good last year. It's basically T-Mac and Hunter, and that's it. And so they kept Hunter. They added a bunch of other wide receivers, and I think what we'll see this season is Noah kind of spread the ball out a little bit more than he did last season.
Dwayne Aquina, go ahead. Dwayne Aquina obviously has had a heck of a career. He was there. It's a great hire by Brennan, but then Texas loses Joseph to the NFL, and here they come. They get Dwayne Aquina. Is that a big loss for them?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and he wasn't – I guess you could say he got demoted to secondary coach, but and Danny Gonzalez is the new defensive coordinator, but it's a big loss because while I don't know if Dwayne's a great defensive coordinator, he is most definitely one of the best position coaches in the secondary ever. Like his numbers, the guys he put in the NFL, the awards and all that, they speak for themselves. Arizona is basically, they're readjusting their coaching staff. They hired a young linebacker coach. They're going to make the announcement later today, a younger guy, and kind of move things around. But you don't just replace a guy like Dwayne Akina, and it's a situation where they had to upgrade the roster on the defensive side of the ball, and they're hoping that the new coaches will do well and all that. But at the end of the day, losing a guy like Akina is obviously a loss.
Do you feel like they will have a running game this year? Because once Krosky Merritt went out last year, they were kind of up a creek.
Yeah. I mean, they loved him, and they thought he was going to be a major player for them, and then they lose him, and it really hurt. Honestly, it hurt more than I thought it would, because I thought that the depth overall was fine. They bring back Kedrick Ricino from Ole Miss. He was on the team last year. He'll get more carries. The big one is Ishmael Mahdi from Texas State. He put up some really big numbers at Texas State. They added him. He'll probably, in my opinion, be the number one back on the team. I like him quite a bit. We don't know what the offense is going to look like. It's kind of air raid. But when Seth Nagy was at Marshall last year, they ran the ball quite a bit as well. But it should be good. On paper, it looks good. Now it's just a matter of keeping these guys healthy and all that. But on paper, they added Cornelius Warren, a high school kid. They added multiple high school kids. They added Quincy Craig out of Portland State, kind of a do-it-all running back. So they have the depth there. Mike Mitchell from Utah is another one they had. So the depth is definitely there. They just need a guy, hopefully Mahdi. I know that's steps up and becomes a kind of a major player.
Jason, we took every team in the Big 12, last question, and thanks for your time today. We took every team when the schedules were released back the week of the Super Bowl, and we've gone one by one with each one of them. And now we've moved to a different conference. What was the overall reaction to Arizona's schedule based on, sometimes in this conference, you don't know from year to year, but the overall reaction to their schedule?
It has its tough stretches. It's another weird year where Kansas State is another out-of-conference game. It's got a tough stretch overall towards the end, but they get a lot of good games at home. Like, they get BYU at home this year. They get Kansas at home, Baylor at home, and so Oklahoma State at home. So, there's good home games. Their home schedule is fine. It's probably better than last year. They had a really difficult stretch last year at some point, but you don't really look at the schedule and go, oh man, they're screwed. Obviously there's improvements that need to be made on the field and all that. But overall, it doesn't read like a schedule where you say, man, Arizona has just no chance at this thing.
Jason, thank you very much for your time. It's great to hear you again.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Jason Scheer with Wildcat Authority with us on many things, from Arizona to even a couple of notes about that subsidy, to try to get some information from him on that.